My mother looked me and said, "We wish you were never born on my 18th birthday." But what she didn't know was that I had a recorder in my pocket. And what came next would expose 15 years of lies. My name is Ella, and I need to tell you about the day my entire world shattered like glass hitting concrete. It was March 15th, 2019. My 18th birthday. Most kids wake up excited, maybe expecting cake or presents or at least a happy birthday text. I woke up to my stepmother Margaret screaming at me through my bedroom door. "Get up, you lazy parasite. Those dishes aren't going to wash themselves." I should probably back up and explain how I got here. My real mother died when I was 3. Cancer. I don't remember much about her except for this one memory, or maybe it's just a dream I've convinced myself is real, of her singing to me in a rocking chair. My father remarried when I was 5 to Margaret, a woman who smiled like honey in public and spoke like venom when the doors closed. They had 2 kids together, Derek, now 15, and Cassidy, now 12. The golden children. The real children, as Margaret would say when she thought I couldn't hear. It only got worse from there. From the day Margaret moved in, I became invisible. Not metaphorically, I mean literally erased from the family narrative. School photos on the wall? Just Derek and Cassidy. Family vacations? I stayed with my grandmother. Christmas presents. I got socks while my step-siblings unwrapped iPads and gaming consoles. My father, God, my father, he just let it happen. I remember being 8 years old, standing in the kitchen after Margaret had dumped my dinner in the trash because I'd apparently looked at her wrong. I turned to my dad, tears streaming down my face, waiting for him to defend me. He just shook his head and walked away, beer in hand. That was the moment I learned I was alone. But the real nightmare started when I turned 16. My maternal grandmother, my mom's mom, died that year. Grandma Rose was the only person who'd ever truly loved me after my mother passed. Every weekend I could escape that house, I'd bike 7 miles to her small apartment and just breathe. She'd make me chamomile tea and let me cry about Margaret's latest cruelty. She'd tell me stories about my mom. She made me feel human. When she died, she left me everything. Her life savings, $180,000. I'll never forget the lawyer's office. Mr. Patterson, this elderly man with kind eyes, read the will aloud. Margaret's face turned scarlet, then pale, then this horrible twisted purple color. My father's jaw clenched so hard I heard his teeth grind. "That money belongs to this family," Margaret hissed in the parking lot afterward, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my shoulder. "You understand me. That money will be used for Derek's college fund. For Cassidy's gymnastics. For this family. It's my money," I whispered. "Grandma left it to me." The slap came so fast I didn't see it coming. My head snapped sideways, and I tasted blood. "You ungrateful little bitch," Margaret spat. "After everything we've done for you. Fed you. Clothed you. Kept a roof over your worthless head." My father stood there, hands in his pockets, looking at the ground. I should have run right then. Mr. Patterson had explained that the money would be held in a trust until I turned 18, with my father as the trustee. I didn't understand what that meant back then. I didn't understand that my father, as trustee, would have access to that account. That he could withdraw funds for my benefit. Within 6 months, $50,000 was gone. I only found out by accident. I was 17, and I'd asked Mr. Patterson in a follow-up meeting how much was left. He'd looked confused, pulled up the account on his computer, and gone pale. "There have been numerous withdrawals," he said carefully. "For your care and education expenses, according to the documentation your father submitted." My care. I wore thrift store clothes with holes. I ate dinner scraps after everyone else finished. I'd been saving birthday money from distant relatives for 3 years just to afford a used laptop for school. Education expenses. I went to public school and paid for my own books by working weekends at a grocery store. That $50,000 had gone to a new boat, to Derek's private soccer coaching, to Cassidy's bedroom renovation that looked like it belonged in a mansion. The abuse got worse after I found out. When I confronted my father, he got this look on his face, this cold, empty look like I was something unpleasant he'd stepped in. "You think you're smart," he said quietly. "You think that money is yours? I'm your legal guardian, Ella. I decide what's best for you. And what's best is supporting this family." "That's stealing," I said, my voice shaking. "Grandma wanted me to have that for college, for my future." He moved so fast. One moment I was standing, the next I was on the floor, my cheek throbbing where his fist had connected. I'd never been hit by him before. Margaret, yes, but never him. "You don't talk back to me in my house," he said, standing over me. "You don't question me. That money is keeping this family afloat, and you should be grateful we didn't kick you out to the streets where you belong." I learned to be quiet after that. I learned to be invisible. But I also learned to be smart. I bought a small digital voice recorder with money from my grocery store job. $30 from Target. I kept it in my pocket, always on, always recording. I started taking pictures with my phone. The bruises on my arms, the empty refrigerator when they went shopping but bought nothing for me, the lock they installed on the outside of my bedroom door. Yes, a lock. On the outside. After I'd confronted my father about the money, they started locking me in my room at night. "For your own good," Margaret said with that sickening sweet smile. "So you don't sneak around causing trouble." I was a prisoner in my own home. My 18th birthday changed everything. Which brings me back to that morning. March 15th, 2019. I'd woken up to Margaret screaming, done the dishes, scrubbed the bathroom, and made breakfast for the family as usual. My hands were raw from the bleach. My stomach was empty. I hadn't eaten since lunch the previous day at school. Around noon, my father called me into the dining room. The whole family was there, sitting at the table like some kind of twisted tribunal. Derek smirked at me. Cassidy looked bored, scrolling on her phone. Margaret had her arms crossed, that familiar look of disgust on her face. "Sit down," my father said. I sat, the recorder in my hoodie pocket, always recording. "You're 18 now," he began. "An adult. Which means we need to discuss your future." My heart started pounding. I'd been accepted to State University with a partial scholarship. I'd been planning to use what was left of my grandmother's money, about $130,000 at this point, I'd calculated, for the rest of tuition and living expenses. 4 years to get my degree in social work. 4 years to escape. "We've decided," Margaret cut in, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "that it's time you contributed to this household financially. You've been a burden long enough." I work at the grocery store," I said quietly. "I pay for my own clothes and—" "That's not enough," my father interrupted. "You'll be giving your paychecks to us now. For rent. For food. For all those years we've supported you." My blood went cold. "But my college." "College?" Margaret laughed, this horrible cackling sound. "You think you're going to college? With whose money?" "My inheritance," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "There's still $130,000. The look they exchanged told me everything. That's when they said it. "About that," my father said, leaning back in his chair. "We've withdrawn the remaining funds. For Derek's college fund. He starts at Princeton next year, and that's expensive." The room started spinning. You can't. That's illegal. That money was mine, It was in a trust. You're 18 now, my father said coldly. The trust dissolved this morning at midnight. I withdrew the funds at 12:01 a.m. as your former trustee. Perfectly legal. It was used for family expenses and your care over the past 2 years, and what's left is going to Derek's education. There's nothing left, Margaret added with a smile. Not a penny. I couldn't breathe. 18 years of my grandmother's life, saving and working and leaving me something so I could escape, so I could build a life, gone. Stolen. That's not fair, I choked out. That was mine, Grandma wanted. Shut up about that old hag, Margaret snapped, her mask slipping. She should have left that money to this family, not some burdened child from a first marriage. I'm not a burden, I said, tears streaming down my face. I'm his daughter. You're nothing, my father said, his voice flat and emotionless. You've been nothing but a drain on this family's resources since the day your mother died. Margaret leaned forward, her eyes glittering with malice. You want to know the truth, Ella? We wish you were never born. We wish your mother had never gotten pregnant with you. Our lives would have been so much better, so much easier, if you had never existed. The silence that followed was deafening. Derek laughed nervously. Cassidy looked up from her phone, her eyes wide. And I just sat there, my hand in my pocket, feeling the recorder capturing every poisonous word. I knew what I had to do. Get out of my sight, my father said, waving his hand dismissively. You're an adult now. You can figure out your own life. But you'll give us rent if you stay here. $800 a month, starting April 1st. I barely made $900 a month at the grocery store. I stood up on shaking legs and walked back to my room. They didn't lock the door. I guess they figured I was beaten, that there was nothing I could do. They were wrong. That night, after everyone went to sleep, I sat on my bedroom floor with my laptop and started researching. 3 hours of reading legal statutes, trust law, fiduciary duty. My eyes burned, but I couldn't stop. What my father had done was called embezzlement and breach of fiduciary duty. As trustee, he was legally required to use that money solely for my benefit, not for his other children, not for family expenses, not for a boat or house renovations. Every withdrawal was documented. Every receipt. Banks kept records. I'd been documenting the abuse for months, the bruises, the locked door, the withheld food. But now I had something even more powerful. Their own words, confessing to financial exploitation and saying they wished I'd never been born. I needed a lawyer. But I had no money. I'd spent everything I'd saved on that laptop and basic necessities. I found help in the strangest place. The next Monday, I went to school with bruises fresh on my arms from where Margaret had grabbed me that morning, screaming about how I'd left a spot on a plate I'd washed. My English teacher, Mrs. Chen, pulled me aside after class. Ella, I need to talk to you, she said gently, closing the door. I've been worried about you for months. Those bruises, the weight you've lost. Are you safe at home? I'd always been so careful to hide everything at school. But Mrs. Chen had been watching, had been noticing. And something in me just broke. I told her everything. The abuse. The stolen money. The lock on my door. The recordings I'd been making. All of it came pouring out in this ugly, sobbing confession in her classroom. Mrs. Chen listened, her face growing paler with each sentence. When I finished, she grabbed her phone. My brother-in-law is an attorney, she said. He specializes in family law and estate litigation. I'm calling him right now. I can't afford. I started. Pro bono, she said firmly. This is exactly the kind of case he takes on. Ella, what they've done to you is criminal. You're not going back to that house. Mrs. Chen drove me to her house that night. I called in sick to work and I never went back to my father's house. She and her husband set me up in their guest room, fed me actual meals, and treated me like a human being for the first time in over a decade. Her brother-in-law, David Chen, came over that evening with a briefcase and a look of barely contained rage after hearing my story. "Do you have the recordings?" he asked. I handed over the digital recorder. We spent 3 hours listening to weeks of documented abuse. Margaret calling me a parasite. My father telling me I was worthless. The sounds of me being hit, screamed at, degraded. And finally, that birthday conversation, all of them confessing to taking my money, saying they wished I'd never been born. David's hands were shaking by the end. "This is one of the worst cases I've ever seen," he said quietly. "Ella, I'm going to need you to be very brave. What we're about to do will get ugly. They'll fight back. They'll try to intimidate you. But I promise you, we're going to get justice." The lawsuit hit them like a bomb. Within 2 weeks, David filed a comprehensive lawsuit. Breach of fiduciary duty, embezzlement, theft, conversion of assets. We also filed restraining orders against both my father and Margaret, which meant they couldn't contact me or come near me. We subpoenaed all the bank records, every transaction from my trust account. And oh, the evidence was damning. $15,000 for a boat, $8,000 for Derek's soccer equipment and coaching, $12,000 for Cassidy's bedroom renovation, $6,000 for a family vacation to Hawaii that I wasn't invited to, $20,000 for a new kitchen. On and on and on. Dozens of withdrawals, none of which could possibly be justified as being for my benefit. My father's lawyer tried to argue that housing, feeding, and clothing me constituted proper use of the trust funds. David demolished that argument by showing photos of my room, a bare mattress on the floor, holes in the walls, no heating vent. He showed pictures of my threadbare clothes from thrift stores. He presented testimony from neighbors who'd never seen me at family dinners visible through the windows. Then came the abuse evidence. The medical records from school where I'd been treated for accidents and clumsiness. The photos of bruises. The recording of them locking me in my room. And finally, the recording from my birthday. Their voices, clear as crystal, confessing to everything. Saying they wished I'd never been born. The court date was brutal. 6 months later, we went to court. I walked into that courtroom in a borrowed suit, Mrs. Chen holding my hand, and saw my father and Margaret sitting with their lawyer. Derek was there too, looking sullen. Cassidy had been spared from attending. My father wouldn't look at me. Margaret stared daggers, her face twisted with hatred. The trial took 3 days. David presented every piece of evidence methodically, building a case so airtight that even the judge looked sick by the end of day 2. On day 3, my father took the stand. David cross-examined him with surgical precision. "Mr. Morrison, did you or did you not withdraw $50,000 from your daughter's trust account?" "I did, but it was for household expenses." "Household expenses like a boat?" Silence. "Like a vacation to Hawaii that Ella wasn't invited on?" More silence. "Mr. Morrison, did you or did you not tell your daughter on her 18th birthday that you wished she had never been born?" My father's face went red. Emotions were high. "Yes or no, Mr. Morrison?" "Yes," he finally said, his voice barely audible. "But I didn't mean." "You didn't mean the words you said to an 18-year-old girl who'd just discovered you'd stolen her inheritance? The inheritance from her deceased grandmother, the only person who loved her." The courtroom was silent except for someone in the gallery crying softly. Then Margaret took the stand, and it got worse. She admitted everything. Margaret had always been impulsive, always led by emotion rather than logic. David knew this from the depositions. He'd been waiting for this moment. "Mrs. Morrison, did you physically strike Ella?" "She needed discipline." Did you withhold food from her as punishment? We had to teach her respect. Did you install a lock on the outside of her bedroom door? For safety. Whose safety, Mrs. Morrison? A 17-year-old girl locked in her room at night? What danger did she pose? Margaret's mask cracked. She was ungrateful. After everything we did for her, she wanted to leave for college, wanted to take that money and abandon this family. That money that wasn't hers to begin with? It should have been. Her grandmother should have thought about the whole family, not just one spoiled child. Spoiled. David's voice rose. You call a child who slept on a bare mattress, wore clothes with holes, and was locked in her room spoiled? She had a roof over her head. Margaret shouted, losing control completely. She should have been grateful. We fed her, we clothed her, and all she did was complain and sneak around recording us. Yes, I know about those recordings, and they're illegal. They're legal in this state, Mrs. Morrison. Single-party consent. Ella had every right to record conversations she was part of. Margaret's face went purple. That little bitch planned this from the beginning. Mrs. Morrison, the judge interrupted sharply. You will watch your language in my courtroom. But the damage was done. The jury had heard everything they needed to hear. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, the 4 women stood and read the verdict. In the matter of Ella Morrison versus Robert Morrison and Margaret Morrison, we find in favor of the plaintiff on all counts. I collapsed into David's arms, sobbing. The judge ordered my father to repay every penny stolen from my trust, $180,000, plus interest, plus punitive damages for the abuse and emotional distress. The total came to $340,000. The criminal charges came next. My father was charged with embezzlement and theft. Margaret was charged with child abuse and assault. Both faced potential prison time. In the end, my father served 18 months in prison. Margaret served 14 months. Derek lost his spot at Princeton when the funding disappeared. They had to sell the house, the boat, everything to pay the judgment. I'm 23 now, 5 years after that horrible birthday. I'm in my last year at State University studying social work, just like I always planned. I have a small apartment, a part-time job I actually enjoy, and a therapist who's helped me process the trauma. I haven't spoken to my father since the trial. He tried to send me a letter from prison. I returned it unopened. Margaret tried to contact me through social media. I blocked her everywhere. Derek sent me an angry email blaming me for ruining his life. I forwarded it to my lawyer and never responded. The money from the judgment is in an account I control completely. I live modestly off part of it for school expenses, and I'm saving the rest. I think Grandma Rose would be proud of that. Mrs. Chen and her family became my real family. I call her Mom sometimes, and she always smiles this beautiful warm smile when I do. They came to my college graduation last spring. They cheer at my accomplishments. They love me. Recently, I got a call from Cassidy. She's 17 now, about to turn 18. She wanted to meet up, to talk. I was hesitant, but something in her voice sounded different, genuine. We met at a coffee shop last week. She looked older, sadder. The first thing she said was, "I'm sorry. I hadn't expected that. I was just a kid," she continued, tears in her eyes. "But I should have said something. I should have stood up for you. I watched them hurt you, and I did nothing, and I'm so sorry." We talked for 3 hours. She told me that after the trial, after our parents went to prison and they lost everything, she'd gone to live with Margaret's sister. That's when she realized how abnormal our childhood had been. How abusive. How wrong. "They messed me up too," she admitted. "Just in different ways. They taught me that love was conditional, that family was about competition and cruelty. I'm in therapy now, trying to unlearn all of it. I don't know if Cassidy and I will ever have a real sister relationship. Too much happened, too much pain. But I told her I forgave her. She was a child too, caught in that toxic environment. Derek, on the other hand, I've written off completely. He's 20 now, working retail and living with our father, who got out of prison last year. From what I've heard, he's bitter, angry, and still blames me for everything. Some people never learn. People ask me sometimes if I'm angry, if I hate my father and Margaret for what they did to me. The truth is more complicated than that. I'm angry at what they stole from me, not just the money, but the childhood I deserved. The safety, the love, the feeling of being wanted and valued. Those are things I can never get back, no matter how many therapy sessions I attend or how much money I won in court. But I'm also grateful. That sounds insane, I know. But that trauma made me strong. It taught me that I could survive anything. It showed me who I really was beneath all the abuse and manipulation. I was someone worth fighting for. And most importantly, it taught me what family really means. It's not about blood. It's not about obligation. It's about the people who choose to love you, who show up for you, who see your worth even when you can't see it yourself. Mrs. Chen and her family chose me. David chose to fight for me. The friends I made in college chose to support me through my healing process. That's real family. I still have nightmares sometimes. I still flinch when someone raises their voice. I still have this deep, irrational fear that I'm going to wake up back in that house, locked in that room, hearing Margaret's voice screaming at me. But then I remember, I'm free. I won. They tried to destroy me, tried to erase me, wished I'd never been born. But I was born. I survived. And I built a life they can never touch. Last month, I went back to visit Grandma Rose's grave for the first time since the trial. I brought flowers, daisies, her favorite, and I sat there in the grass, just talking to her. I told her about college, about my plans to become a social worker specializing in child abuse cases. I told her about Mrs. Chen, about my therapist, about the new life I'd built from the ashes of my childhood. And I told her thank you. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did. Thank you for leaving me that inheritance, not because I needed the money, though God knows it helped, but because it proved that someone thought I was worth investing in. That money wasn't just financial security. It was validation. It was proof that I mattered to someone. As I stood to leave, I noticed a woman at a nearby grave, crying softly. She looked young, maybe 19, with bruises peeking out from under her sleeves. She caught me looking and quickly pulled her jacket tighter. I recognized that gesture. I'd done it 1,000 times myself. I walked over slowly, carefully. "Are you okay?" She looked up, tears streaming down her face. I'm fine. Just visiting my grandmother." "Those bruises," I said gently. "Are you safe at home?" Her face crumpled. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. "My stepfather, he controls everything. My mom just watches. I thought maybe when I turned 18 last month I could leave, but he stole my college fund, and I have nowhere to go and—" I pulled out my phone and showed her David Chen's contact information. "Call this lawyer. Tell him Ella Morrison sent you. He'll help you. I promise." She looked at me with hope and fear warring in her eyes. "Did something like this happen to you?" "Yes," I said. "And I survived. You will too." I gave her my number before I left. She texted me that evening. I called the lawyer. "Thank you. I thought I was alone." "You're not alone," I texted back. "You never were." And that's the truth I wish someone had told me when I was 16, 17, 18 years old, trapped in that house of horrors. You are not alone. Your pain is real. Your suffering matters. And there are people who will fight for you when you can't fight for yourself. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar, please reach out. Document everything. Find a trusted adult. Contact a lawyer if you need to. Organizations exist to help you. You are worth saving. You are worth fighting for. They may wish you were never born, but the world needs you in it. I know, because I'm still here. And every day I wake up free, every day I make choices for myself, every day I love and am loved. It's proof that surviving was worth it. My name is Ella Morrison. I was told I was nothing, that I was a burden, that I should never have existed. But I proved them wrong. And if you're out there, reading this, feeling trapped and hopeless, you can prove them wrong too. You are not your abuse. You are not your trauma. You are not the cruel words spoken over you. You are a survivor. You are strong. You are worthy. And your story isn't over yet. Thank you for listening to my story. If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, please reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline, Child Protective Services, or a trusted adult. You deserve safety. You deserve love. You deserve justice.